Stone walls will support more plants and other wildlife than newer, more modern walls. Dry stone walls that are found around fields, especially in the west of the country, can be really important for biodiversity. But old mortared stone walls found in villages, towns and cities around the country can also be quite important for biodiversity. On these old mortared stone walls, the mortar used is more often than not lime mortar. And this mortar is made from limestone. And limestone is a type of calcareous rock. The Maidenhair fern, which is rare in Ireland, grows on calcareous cliffs and on limestone pavement like that found in the Burren. In Ireland, the Maidenhair fern is native in places such as here and here, but probably not here. In Cork, it's been found growing in lime mortar on old brick and stone walls, and it probably escaped from plants kept in people's houses. Old stone walls and other stonework provide a similar habitat to that found on cliffs, rocky slopes, and other bare rock. Because they're made from the same material, it can sometimes be difficult to tell what is an old stone wall and what is natural bare rock. The stone in old stone walls was usually dug up or quarried from local bedrock. Old red sandstone and Carboniferous limestone are two of the most common bedrock types in County Cork, and they can often be seen in walls and buildings in Cork County and City. Old red sandstone is acidic, whereas limestone is basic or alkaline. Whether a bedrock is acidic or alkaline will affect what types of species can grow on it, and in some cases, even what they look like when they grow on it. The top of a wall may be very dry, whereas the bottom of a wall can be quite damp or wet, and different sides of a wall can look very different depending on whether they're facing north, south, east, or west. Spleenwort ferns are a group of ferns that in Ireland naturally grow on cliffs, rocky slopes, and other bare rock. So they will quite happily grow on stone walls in villages, towns, and cities. You might recognize some such as rustyback, woolrue, black spleenwort, maidenhair spleenwort, not to be confused with the rare maidenhair fern, and hart's tongue fern. And you'll often find polypody ferns growing on walls too. As well as the spleenwort ferns, other native plant species found growing on walls in Cork include the very common herb robert, the much less common round-leaved cranesbill, rue-leaved saxifrage, mouse-ear hawkweed, biting stonecrop, and fern grass. You can see the fern grasses photobombing the biting stonecrop in the photograph on the left. You'll find lots of non-native plants growing on walls around Cork City and County as well. One of them is the ivy-leaved toadflax. Another is red valerian, white stonecrop, the Adria bellflower, and Aubrietia are all species that are probably originally planted in gardens. Stone walls and other stonework is a habitat type that's listed in A Guide to Habitats in Ireland. A Guide to Habitats in Ireland lists habitat types that can be found in Ireland. It was produced by the Heritage Council and is free to download from their website, the National Biodiversity Data Centre website, and the National Parks and Wildlife Service website. And you can probably find it other places too. In this habitat type, the other stonework includes stonework such as that found in bridges, for example, which can be an important habitat type for the dipper and Dorbenton's bat. Derelict or ruinous stone buildings can provide a habitat for species such as the barn owl and the lesser horseshoe bat. Cracks and spaces between bricks and stones and cracks and spaces in mortar provide habitat for invertebrates. Bees like the mason bee will excavate holes, as will many other invertebrate species. If you look close enough, who knows what you'll find. Older cemeteries can just be really good places for biodiversity in general, but headstones and other stonework in cemeteries can be particularly important for lichens. Lichens are an interesting type of life form. They're made up of two different types of organisms living very closely together and each helping the other. Some species of algae and fungi can come together to form lichens. Depending on which species of alga and fungus comes together, the lichen that's formed can come in a variety of different shapes and colors. Some lichens can live for a very long time, some species for thousands of years. Some estimate that one particular species of map lichen might live for over 8,000 years. We've said that derelict or ruinous stone buildings could be good for biodiversity, but old stone buildings that aren't derelict or ruinous can also be good for biodiversity. We've all heard that belfries in old churches can be good for bats, but birds will live in them as well, including the peregrine falcon, a pair of which have nested in Shandon before now. The materials used in buildings and the way we build them has changed over time, and this is maybe a good thing as very modern buildings are more and more energy efficient, but they can be quite plain and lack the nooks and crannies and crevices and cracks and other details that are useful for wildlife. However, wildlife will use modern buildings. I've certainly seen peregrine falcons using the county hall on Carrigrahan Road. And barn owls will very happily use quite modern barn buildings. And modern houses will be used by some species. One very obvious example is, of course, the house martin that arrives from Africa from mid-March and will build nests from mud in the eaves of roofs, but it will nest in other places too. And bats have been known to use attic space in modern houses as well. One bird species that finds it difficult to use modern buildings is the swift, and this could be part of the reason why their numbers in Ireland have declined by almost 40% since 2008. However, there are things that people can do to make even modern buildings friendly for wildlife. On their website, Birdwatch Ireland have got a great resource called Wildlife in Buildings. It talks about the different types of species that use buildings, the types of buildings that they use, and also advice on what you can do to help wildlife in your home. You can download the information and advice booklets from their website. And on the website, there's another really great booklet called Saving Swifts, with information on how you can help swifts, including advice on how and where to install different types of swift nest box. And the Birdwatch Ireland website also has information on other nest boxes that are suitable for homes and gardens too. Most houses will have a garden, and regardless of whether it's big or small, doing a little bit in your garden to help nature and biodiversity can have a big impact if everybody else does a little bit too. Leaving slightly longer gaps between when you mow your lawn means plants can flower longer, which means more food for bees, hoverflies, butterflies, and many other insect species. Leaving grass to grow longer in a corner or along a wall are simple, low-cost ways to get a pollinator-friendly garden. And you can find more details on these and other pollinator-friendly actions for your garden on the website of the All Ireland Pollinator Plan, pollinators.ie. And if you want to do even more, Gardening for Biodiversity by Juanita Brown is another great free resource. It's got tips on how you can encourage wildlife into your garden and look after it when it's there.